Hello, good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM, Unity Women's College, Mancheri. Today we are going to discuss one of the most popular poems written by the American poet Robert Frost, and the title of the poem is A Roadside Stand. So, a few details related with the poet Robert Frost. So, you can see the picture of Robert Frost. Now, this is Frost during his younger days. This is Robert Frost with his wife Eleanor White. Now, you can see the picture of Frost with his family. And on the right hand side, you can see the farmhouse which was bought by Robert Frost. So before stepping into the poem, a few biographical details of the poet. He was born in 1874 at California. So basically he is an American poet. He suffered a number of tragedies in his life. His father died, later his mother died, and out of the 6 children born to him, only 2 survived. So he has gone through a number of trials and tribulations in his lifetime. Farming was his greatest love, which means he had a very deep association with nature. And writing poetry was another great interest of Robert Frost. He mostly wrote about the common situations of ordinary people. He is America's most read poet, and even today he is considered as a national celebrity. And New England is one of the main areas which can be found in most of his poems. Now please remember, New England is not in England. New England is actually a place in America. Now, there is always a statement which goes along with Robert Frost's poems. His poems begin in delight and they end in wisdom. Now, this is very true if you analyze any of the poems written by Frost. I'm sure you might have heard about the poem The Road Not Taken. Again, there is Mending Wall, which many of you might have studied, or at least many of you might have heard. The poem Mending Wall begins in a very conversational, casual kind of tone, but it ends with a piece of wisdom. The poem ends like this: good fences make good neighbors. So you can see most of the poems written by Frost will be conveying a message to the readers or to the audience or possibly to the society. Again, another important poem written by Frost is Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. I'm sure you might have heard of the lines, I have miles and miles to go before I sleep. So this was one of the writings which Jawaharlal Nehru had placed on his official table. Again, another important poem written by Frost is titled as Birches. Now, there are so many other poems, like there is Apple Picking. So all these poems, basically, they deal with the ordinary common situations of a village life or maybe a farmer. So now getting on to the poem, A Roadside Stand. So I have 2 questions to make you think before we start with the poem. Have you ever seen a roadside stand? I'm sure your answer would be yes. You might have seen, you might have noticed a roadside stand while traveling. The second question is, have you ever bought anything from a roadside stand? Now, when we talk about roadside stands, occasionally we buy things from roadside stands. Mostly when you travel long distance, that is one time when you stop your vehicle and buy things from these roadside stands. On the other hand, when you are in your normal, ordinary living situation, you would be having certain specific stationery stores from where you would be buying things on a regular basis. You won't be going to a roadside stand to buy things. So buying something from a roadside stand is something which happens occasionally, but not on a regular basis. So now I would like to take you towards a few pictures of a few roadside stands. Now you can see this is actually a westernized concept here. You can see a roadside stand. You can see the lady is actually squinting because of the heavy sunlight. You can see a number of products which are on display. You can see the price of the products. You can see a small board over there in which the prices are mentioned. So this is what you call as a roadside stand. So a roadside stand is just a very small a small scale kind of shop. You can't really call it a shop. It would be just an extension or a kind of a local market where local products or producers would be displayed for sale. So now I'm going to take you towards a few Indian pictures. Now you can see the first one. This is again a roadside stand. Again you can see something like a market, a local market. Again you can see the third picture. That is a picture from Rajasthan where you can see an old man who is selling bananas. So this is what you mean by a roadside stand. So before moving into the poem, this is included in the poetry collection which is titled as A Further Range. The first title considered by Frost was Uttanasia. Now, what is Uttanasia? Now, Uttanasia means mercy killing. I'm sure you might have heard about the pleas by a number of people, where you might have heard of stories where people lie in coma stages. They remain in a stage or in a status of just like being a vegetable. They cannot walk, they cannot move, they cannot talk. So sometimes for those kind of patients, people think of mercy killing because they're just lying as a vegetable. So why do they need to survive in this miserable condition? So a better option would be to relieve them from this suffering and misery, so they can be killed so that at least they would get some peace. So this is what you call as mercy killing. Now if you look at the legal system in India, mercy killing is not legally allowed in India, but there are so many Western countries where mercy killing is legalized, so that if a patient wants to finish his own life, or maybe his relatives, they want to put an end to the suffering of the patient, definitely they can go for the euthanasia, mercy killing. That is by the administration of a few doses of medicine by the doctors. So euthanasia means mercy killing, and it is not something which is legally practiced in India. And if you look at this poem, we can see it is filled with a number of natural images. It is a social criticism against modernization. And throughout the poem, you can see the author is contrasting the modern life and rural life, that is village life. He wrote mainly about farmers and their ordinary lives, their simple lives. The tone of this poem is very simple, it is very direct. It speaks about the themes that we see around us. So it is actually about the natural world, it is about farmers. And today when we live in a scenario where farmers' protests are going on at the other side of the country, I think this poem is very, very relevant. So it's again the same question, so let's move on. Okay, so here is a poem. A roadside stand. So I'm sure now you know what a roadside stand is. The little old house was out with a little new shed in front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled, it would not be fair to say for a dole of bread, but for some of the money, the cash, whose flow supports the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint. So this is how he begins. The little old house. Now just look at the adjectives used. Little, old. So you can imagine the condition of the house. The house is very little, very tiny, very small, and it is very old and ancient. So we get a picture of the kind of life led by these village farmers. It is a simple life that they are actually leading. So this little old house was out with a little new shed. So this is a very little small house, and this little house is having a little new shed in front, which means in front of this tiny house there is a small extension, and it is a new shed in front at the edge of the road where the traffic sped. So maybe it's a busy road, maybe it can be a highway where a number of vehicles would be passing to and fro every minute. So in such a place, this tiny house remains with an extension, an extended shed. Now maybe if you look at the picture, you will get a clear idea. You can see it's a very small house, and you can see a slight extension where you can see a number of fruits are actually dumped. So this is not something like a supermarket that we visit in the normal pace. This is just an extension from their own house. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled. Now again you can see the rhyme scheme which is being used here: shed, sped, again pled, bread. So it has been done in a very beautiful way. So a roadside stand that too pathetically pled. So here stands a roadside stand at the edge of the road where the traffic sped, and this roadside stand that too pathetically pled. Now pled is actually the past tense of the word plead. So to plead means to beg. Now actually in today's usage, pled is not normally used because pled is an archaic kind of usage, a very old usage. Now today for plead we use it as pleaded. We don't use it as pled. So pled is actually a very old kind of usage, but Frost is trying to use that archaic usage. A roadside stand that too pathetically pled, which means it was just like the small roadside stand was begging to the people passing through that area. It would not be fair to say for a dole of bread. A dole of bread actually means livelihood. You might have heard of the term like breadwinner of the family, which means the man who brings money to the family, though things are different because even women can bring money to the family these days. Okay, so breadwinner means someone who brings money to the family so that people can eat. So this bread actually stands as a symbolic representation of food. It would not be fair to say for a dole of bread, which means it is not for livelihood that they have started this new shed. Which means though their life is very simple, though they are having the basic necessities, it is just for an extra money that they have started the new shed. So these people are not living in utter poverty. It's a very simple life that they are leading, but it is not a life of extreme poverty. It's a very basic life. So it is not for a dole of bread, which means it is not because of poverty that they have started a new shed, but for some of the money, which means some extra money, a little bit of luxury. So this is for some extra money that they have started a new shed. The cash, so that is the extra cash that they are dreaming of, whose flow supports the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint. So here the poet says that it is not for the livelihood that they have started the new shed, but it is to get some extra money, the cash, whose flow supports the flower of cities. So Frost is suggesting that these farmers have started this roadside stand in the belief that the city people traveling through these roads in cars might stop and buy a few things and spend a few money on these products, whose flow supports the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint. Now this means the flower of cities. Now the flower of cities can mean the different parks and gardens in the city of America. So these parks and gardens are well maintained in America. Now, how is this maintained? Now, maybe it could be because of the tax amount collected in cities by the government from the people in order to maintain these parks and gardens. So maybe Frost is talking about the money that flows in city, because lifestyle is very different in a city and in a village. So Frost says that whose flow supports the flower of cities, which means the rich people would be paying tax, and this tax money would be used to maintain the parks and gardens. So the flower of cities are actually maintained because of the money that is flowing in the city. So the flower of cities from sinking and withering faint. Sinking means falling and withering is actually dying. But please remember, withering is a term that we use only in connection with flowers. We won't say the man is withering. We say the flower is withering, so that is a term in association with flowers. So if this money is not flowing into these cities, definitely the parks and gardens would be without any flowers. These flowers would fall and die. But since the government is getting money through tax, they are able to maintain these parks and gardens. So in the last two lines, Frost is talking about the money that is flowing in city because of the rich people in city. Now, this rich people might come and stop and buy a few things from these people, from the village people. This is what the villagers or the farmers are dreaming of. So, in total, this shed is placed to get some extra money to enjoy some luxuries of life. So, moving on, the polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, or if ever reside a moment, then out of sorts, at having the landscape marred with the artless of signs that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong. The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead. Now just look at the terms, the underlined terms, the polished traffic. Now there is a figure of speech which is coming in here, the polished traffic. The figure of speech here is a transferred epithet. Now what is a transferred epithet? Now a transferred epithet means where the reference is with something else. Now look at these terms, polished traffic. It looks like a non-living thing, right? Polished traffic. It can be some expensive cars, okay, very costly cars, maybe luxury cars, so polished traffic. But is the poet really talking about cars here? No. He's actually talking about the rich people sitting inside the cars. So actually the reference here is towards the people. So that is why the figure of speech is known as transferred epithet. Though people are not mentioned here, the meaning is transferred with reference to the people. The polished traffic passed with a mind ahead, which means the people who were traveling through these roads, they passed with a mind ahead without looking at the roadside stands, or if ever aside a moment, in case if they looked out of their windows, then out of sorts. Out of sorts means in an angry way. So these people were not at all interested in looking at the roadside stands at both sides. In case if anybody looked outside, they looked at these roadside stands out of anger. They were really angry because of these roadside stands. Why? We'll understand why in the coming stanzas. At having the landscape marred, marred means spoiled. At having the landscape marred with the artless of signs, artless means not at all decorative, something of poor quality. So the poet says that the city people traveling in these expensive cars, they were angry looking at the roadside stands because these roadside stands were actually spoiling or blocking the beauty of the landscape. Now I would just love to take you towards a few pictures here. Now just look at the picture. Now this is a picture from the west. So you can see the beautiful mountains, the snow-covered mountains. So imagine if you are passing through this kind of a road, and if the view or the beauty cannot be seen because of a few roadside stands, you will automatically get angry. So this is exactly the condition of the people traveling inside the cars. Now let's take another picture here. Now this is a picture from Austria. You can see the snow-covered mountains. You can see Alps on the other side. There is a building on this side. It's all total greenery. And imagine if you are peeping out of the window of a car in order to look at the snow-covered Alps, and suddenly your view is blocked by a roadside stand. You will automatically get angry. Now this exactly is the condition that the poet is talking about. Okay. So, if they are looking out of the car window, they are angry because the landscape is blocked. The beauty of the landscape cannot be seen because of this roadside stand. And more than that, with the artless of signs, artless means poor quality, not at all decorative. So maybe if you look at the signboards in cities and the signboards in villages, there can be a lot of differences. In cities, you can see it would be more colorful, it would be perfect. On the other hand, in villages, it would be totally different. So, artless, poor quality of signboards that with N turned wrong and S turned wrong. So, N and S can stay for north and south direction boards. So, maybe the spelling could be wrong, or maybe it is written in poor quality materials. So, in short, costly cars pass through these roads and they look at these areas with anger. These city dwellers find these roadside stands as spoiling the beauty of nature, as a block. They find the signboards too irritating. The poem focuses on the larger theme within, which is actually the difference between the rich and the poor. So moving on, offered for sale wild berries in wooden quarts. So from this stanza onwards, the poet is describing the things which are kept for sale. Offered for sale wild berries in wooden quarts. Now wooden quarts can be wooden kind of boxes. So different variety of berries which are kept for sale. So you can imagine the picture. On the right hand side you can see fruits and vegetables which are placed within wooden quarters. So it's a box like structure and you place all these fruits and vegetables within that box. Or crook-necked golden squash with silver warts. Now what is this crook-necked golden squash? Now you can see the picture here. This is a pumpkin. It is known as a crook-necked golden squash because the color is golden. Crook-necked, you can see the top portion, it is slightly bent. You call that crook-necked golden squash with silver warts. Silver warts can be, you can see the other picture where there are certain marks and lines, silver lines. You call that silver warts. Of beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene. You have the money, but if you want to be mean, why keep your money this crossly and go along? So now this is what the farmer thinks and this is what the farmer says. Now the farmer says that he has no complaint if these cars are not stopping here because they are not stopping there to look at the beauty on the landscape or beauty rest in a beautiful mountain scene. These people are not even stopping there to look at the beautiful mountain scene. You have the money. Now this is about the city people. They have the money. But if you want to be mean, if you want to be selfish, why keep your money and go along? So this is actually what the village people are saying because no cars are planning to stop. No one is planning to buy anything from them. So they are totally disappointed and they are suggesting that if you have the money and if you don't want to spend it, just keep it with you. In bracket you can see the term crossly. Crossly again means angrily. The hurt to the scenery wouldn't be my complaint so much as the trusting sorrow of what is unsaid. So the farmer here is actually thinking and saying, I don't have any complaints if you are not stopping here and looking at the beauty of these mountains. But There is a trusting sorrow that remains. What is unsaid? Unsaid here means the feeling you get when people don't buy the products. So the farmers want these people to stop the cars and buy things, but they are not doing that. They are not stopping there, they are not buying the products. So the farmer is telling about his sorrow, the sadness that he feels in his mind. Here, far from the city, we make a roadside stand and ask for some city money to feel in hand. So, see the rhyme scheme again. So, here this is actually the way in which the farmer speaks. So, Frost is actually bringing that picture to the forefront now. Here, far from the city, so that is the village area, we make a roadside stand and ask for some city money to feel in hand, which means if these city people can buy things, definitely this will help us to get some extra money to try if it will not make our being expand. Now, what is this being expand? Being can be human beings. So expanding here can be improving the lifestyle. So maybe there is a lot of difference between the lifestyle in a city and in a rural place. So here the farmer is telling that if these city people are ready to spend some money by buying the products, we will get some extra money, and with this money we can improve our lifestyle and give us a life of the moving pictures promise. Now moving pictures promise, moving picture is a cinema. So here the farmer is saying that we too dream of living a life just as we see in movies, because in movies life is always colorful. So this is what the farmer says: give us a life of the moving pictures promise that the party in power is said to be keeping from us. So maybe a number of political parties might have come. So each party would be assuring them that they would get a better life, but nothing is really happening. So they want to improve their lifestyle with a little bit of money, but nothing is really happening. So this is actually the disappointment of the village farmers. It is in the news that all these pitiful kin here, the village people, the poor people, are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in. So maybe the government might have promised that these poor farmers in the village areas would be relocated to another city area. Now, you might have seen the very same situations in media or sometimes in movies where poor people would be assured of something else and people would be grabbing their village areas. But after some time, they would lose their own village areas and they would not be relocated to any other areas too. So promises are not really kept. So this is exactly what the farmers are talking about. So it is in the news that we people would be relocated to the city areas. Many political parties have promised that, but nothing is really happening. We are to be bought out and mercifully gathered in to live in villages next to the theatre and the store. So theatre and the store can be a representation of modern life. When you have theaters and different stores and shops around you, it's just somewhat similar to a city life where they won't have to think for themselves anymore, which means where these village farmers will have everything necessary around them. They don't have to work hard and think, because the political parties or the government would be taking care of them by relocating them to the city or by providing them with all the facilities in the village itself. While greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey. So look at the terms used by Frost. Greedy good doers. So you can see the consonant sounds being repeatedly used. Greedy good doers. So there is alliteration which is coming here. Again, beneficent beasts of prey. So the b sound, consonant, again coming together. So alliteration is coming in here. And moreover, greedy good doers. If a person is greedy, how can he be a good doer? So that's contradiction. Again, beneficent beasts of prey. Now, beasts of prey is an indication towards the animals which are using violence. Maybe if you watch Discovery Channel or National Geographic Channel, you can see how these huge animals, they pounce upon the little animals and kill them out. So this is what the poet is also suggesting here. The rich people are actually taking advantage of the poor people, or maybe the city people are taking advantage of the village people. So, greedy good doers, there is a contradiction. If someone is greedy, they cannot be good doers. Again, beneficent, beasts of prey. Beneficent is a positive term. If someone is beneficent, how can they be beasts of prey? Beast of prey is a negative term. So, here another figure of speech is coming, which is oxymoron. They swarm over their lives enforcing benefits. So these people, the politicians, maybe the government, the rich people, the businessmen, they swarm over the lives of these village people enforcing benefits by promising them with benefits that are calculated to soothe them out of their wits. So it's actually a planned method. They are trying to convince the poor village farmers that they would be given a better life, but ultimately nothing is happening. And by teaching them how to sleep, they sleep all day, destroy their sleeping at night, the ancient way. Now, what is this ancient way? Now, ancient way can be bribery. Now, bribery need not be always with money. Sometimes certain conditions or certain kind of promises are made. Now, even at our own homes, we can see we do make conditions unknowingly. For example, if you do that, I will help you out with this. If you clean the room, I shall take you out. We normally say these kind of things to the babies. So, in a way, it is using conditions. So, here again, the ancient way could be the promises which have been given to these poor villages, but promises which are not kept. Another thing is that the farmers are normally known as hard working people. So they toil and they do all the hard work during the morning time, and at night they get a peaceful sleep. But now, when these people would be relocated to the cities, they cannot continue with their farming anymore, so they don't have any work to do, and because of that, they cannot sleep at night. But at the same time, the politicians and the rich people, even the business people, are sleeping very peacefully because they have taken advantage of these poor farmers. So, how political parties use the poor people for their benefit, that is being discussed here. How the rich destroyed the sleep of the poor. The poet criticizes how powerful and rich people utilize the poor people. So the contrast is once again highlighted and focused on. Sometimes I feel myself I can hardly bear. So now Frost is coming to his personal side. Sometimes I feel, so the I here is Frost himself. Sometimes I feel myself I can hardly bear. Now hardly has got a negative meaning, so hardly bear means cannot bear. So Frost cannot bear the misery of these poor villages. The thought of so much childish longing in vain. Childish longing here means just like the dreams of a child, in vain means not successful. Now, if you look at the position of the farmers who have started a roadside stand. Now, they have started a roadside stand with the dreams that people would come and buy their products. But their dreams are not really happening. They remain as dreams only because everything is in vain because nobody is stopping there and buying things. The sadness that lurks near the open window there. So, the open window can be the window of the roadside stand or the shed. The sadness that lurks. Now, here again, you can see there is a figure of speech that is coming and it is personification. Now, personification is when you attribute certain human qualities to something which is not human. So, see this line, the sadness that lurks near the open window. So, it's just like a man or a woman standing near the window. The sadness that lurks, can sadness come and stand near the window? No. So the sadness that lurks, so it is personified. Sadness is personified or sadness is given the quality of a human being. that waits all day in almost open prayer. So every day, every minute, these villagers are praying at least someone would drop in and buy their things. For the squeal of brakes, the sound of a stopping car, of all the thousand selfish cars that pass. Now, selfish cars again, remember, it is a transferred epithet which we discussed previously as the polished traffic. So the reference here is actually to the people traveling inside. For the squeal of brakes, the sound of a stopping car. So suddenly when a car stops or when a car applies the brakes, these people are full of dreams because they believe they have stopped to buy something from them. Of all the thousand selfish cars that pass, so thousands of cars are actually passing, but none of them are stopping. Just one to inquire what a farmer's prices are. So they believe or they dream at least one person, one car would stop and come and inquire the price of the products kept there. So this is a dream of the villagers. And one did stop, but only to plow up grass in using the yard to back and turn around. So what is happening in reality? The dream of a farmer is that these cars should stop and would come and buy things. But one car really stopped. But what happened? That car stopped only to plow up grass in using the yard, which means this car stopped just to use the backyard of these people in order to reverse the car. To back and turn around, it is to reverse the car. So it was not to buy their products. And another to ask the way to where it was bound. We sometimes do that, right? When you're traveling long distance or when you are in search of a place, sometimes when you cannot understand the route, you stop in front of a shop. Sometimes you stop in front of some people gathered over one place and you ask them, where is this road leading to? So another car stopped, but that was just to question this, where it was bound. So it was a question about the road. And another to ask, could they sell it a gallon of gas? So another person stopped the car and asked, why are you not selling petrol or fuel? So maybe he is out of fuel, he is running out of fuel. They couldn't, this crossly, they had none, didn't it see? So this is a farmer's response. The farmer is suggesting that can't these people see that we are not selling fuel? We are just selling some farm produces. So how the dreams of these people are crushed. It is mentioned through these lines. They still hope that some car would stop and buy their products. So it's just like a small child dreaming of something which is never going to happen. So coming to this is the last stanza. No, in country money, the country scale of gain, the requisite lift of spirit has never been found, which means in country money. Now, there is a lot of difference between city money and country money because in city, money flows. But in country, the only money that is coming is through farming, and that is a limited money. So their lifestyle is also very different. The country scale of gain, so the economic growth, if you compare it, it's very, very different. The requisite lift of spirit has never been found, which means with this minimal amount of money, these people could never uplift their spirits, which means they could never lead a luxurious life. Also, the voice of the country seems to complain. So Frost says the voice of the country, which means the farmers in the village areas, they seem to complain because they are always going through these difficult situations. I can't help owing the great relief it would be. So Frost, as a poet and as a farmer, he is able to understand the emotions and feelings of these people. And he says, as a human being, I just want to do something to relieve them from this painful situation, to put these people at one stroke out of their pain. So I really would like to do something to relieve them from their pain. So what could that be? And that is a question that remains in the mind of the audience. Now here, Frost is even thinking about death. He's even thinking about putting these farmers to death. Now, here, as a reader, you have to understand it in a positive light because it is not a literal kind of death that Frost is talking about. He is, in fact, talking about a symbolic kind of death whereby he could do something to renew their spirits, to give them a better life. So, maybe this could be the reason why he thought of the title as Uttanasia or mercy killing, because he is even thinking about putting them to death in order to relieve them from this miserable situation. And then next day, as I come back into the scene, so after putting these people out of this miserable situation, next day when I come back into my normal life, I wonder how I should like you to come to me and offer to put me gently out of my pain. So just as I helped these farmers to end their life, in the very same way, I want you people. So you here is actually the readers. The readers would be you and me, we. So Frost wants the readers to come and help him and put him out of this miserable situation. So Frost is actually trying to identify with the farmers, and he says he is trying to put an end to their miserable situation. So just as he has tried to end their miserable situation, he wants the readers to do the very same thing to him. So nobody helps these poor farmers to upgrade their life, and the poet would like to put an end to the difficulties of these village farmers. In the very same way, he would prefer someone else putting an end to his own miseries. So he is actually talking about from the perspective of a human being trying to soothe or ease the difficulties of poor farmers. So with this we come to the end of the poem. So we would be discussing a few questions at the back of the text. From which anthology is a poem A Roadside Stand taken? So the answer is A Further Range. Question number 2. The woods are lovely, dark and deep. This is from the poem Stopping by Woods on a Snowy Evening. Now this is what we discussed in the introductory slide. Uttanasia is a term which means mercy killing. The sadness that lurks near the open window. What is the figure of speech employed here? We already discussed that it is personification. Next comes answer in a sentence or two. What are the reasons for which a car may stop in front of the roadside stand according to the farmer? A car may stop to inquire about the products kept for sale, or to ask for some fuel, or sometimes to reverse the car. However, none would actually hold an intention to purchase things from these poor villages. Question number 2. What is the promise offered by the motion pictures? Moving pictures or cinema would offer a colorful and glamorous life which is often difficult to achieve in real life. Question number 3. What is the attitude of the city dwellers towards the roadside stand? The city people fail to recognize the misery of the village people. They find these roadside stands as a mere block which ruins the beauty of the countryside. They also criticize the non-decorated signboards placed here. Question number 4. Explain the figure of speech in polished traffic. So again, selfish cars too. The figure of speech here is transferred epithet. We have already discussed that. The cars are not selfish here and the traffic is not polished here. But the reference here is to those people who travel in such expensive cars without bothering to think about the poor people at the village side. Their insensitive attitude is revealed here by the poet. So selfish and polished. This is not applicable to the cars, but in fact it is transferred. The reference is transferred to the people traveling inside, and that is why it becomes a transferred epithet. Question number 5. How is the country's sale of gain contrasted with that of the city? The quality of life in any place is measured according to the money flow within the place. While the city people have enough cash flow, the village farmers are in fact struggling to make both ends meet. They have the roadside stand placed only to get some extra money so that they can enjoy some luxuries of life just like the city people. Question number 6. Who are the beneficent beasts of prey and the greedy good doers? The reference here is to the rich people and the political leaders in the city. They promised a dreamland for the poor farmers, but they ultimately end up ruining the lives of these village dwellers. They appear to be good people, but in reality, their intention is to take advantage of the poor villagers. So just remember the terms alliteration and oxymoron, which we discussed. So here comes the paragraph questions. Comment on Frost's skillful use of figures of speech in the poem. Now, figures of speech are actually used in order to emphasize the context. To give an extra stress on the situation, figures of speech are used. So, the first one is transferred epithet. We have already discussed that. So, I'm just going through the points only, which means you will have to elaborate it, you will have to expand and write it. So, I'm just going through the main points, the bullet points. So, transferred epithet, the best example would be selfish cars and polished traffic. We already discussed that. Then comes personification, the sadness that lurks behind the open window. Personification. And here personification means the human quality, the attribute which is passed to something which is non-human. Again, greedy good doers and beneficent beasts of prey, alliteration is coming in here, and oxymoron. So you can describe the context and you can explain all these things. It will give you enough and more lines necessary for a paragraph question. Question number 2. What is the persona of the farmer that is revealed in the dramatic monologue? So throughout the poem, we see it is all about sadness and disappointment. You can mention the initial stages where the roadside stand is set up at the edge of the road, but nobody is looking at it. The city people traveling in cars are just considering it as a block, spoiling their view towards the mountainous scenic beauty. Again, you can also feel the rejection that these farmers feel because nobody is stopping there and buying things, so they feel rejected. And they also realize the meanness, the selfishness of the city people. Their dreams of a luxurious living, it remains just as a dream. So you can also mention how different cars stop, but one car stops to reverse the car, the other one actually stops to inquire about the price, the third one comes, they would be asking about the road. So in totality, nobody is stopping there and buying things. So you can understand the disappointment running through the mind of these farmers. So throughout the poem, it is all about sadness and rejection. Question number 3. Do you think Uttanasia would be a better title for this poem? Justify. So we already discussed what Uttanasia is, what mercy killing is. So is that title applicable to the situation here? Definitely it is applicable here because the village people are going through a very difficult situation. It is a pathetic condition because they are not getting what they have been promised. The politicians, the government, they have promised a lot of things, but nothing is happening. The rich people in the city are not giving any attention to them. So it is actually a symbolic kind of statement, mercy killing. It doesn't mean that Frost wants to kill these village people, but he's actually even thinking of a possibility that at least death would give them some peace because now they are totally in a disillusioned situation, a rejected kind of status. So death can erase their misery. This is what Frost feels. So considering it as a symbolic statement, Uttanasia definitely would have been a better title. Now see, in literature there is nothing like right or wrong. I have told this a number of times in the class because when you are given a question and when you are asked justify, you can justify it in any way. On one side, you can argue and say mercy killing is not the right title. A roadside stand itself is the better title. So it's up to you. For me, I feel Uttanasia would have been a better title, but if you have a different version, definitely go ahead. You can argue that out. Okay, so when you are given a question like justify, it is your answer that you have to justify. So coming to next question number 4. How does a farmer access city life? So he's actually thinking about the luxuries there. At the same time, he realizes that they belong to the group of those pitiful kin because nobody is looking at them. A lot of promises have been made, but these promises are not kept. So, in fact, these rich people and politicians are taking advantage of these poor people. And now that they are not into farming, when they are placed into the city areas, they cannot sleep at night. So, the totality here is that the farmers are not enjoying their life, which means their life is never peaceful. So, coming to the essay questions, analyze the poem as a critique of modernization. So, there are lots of points that you can say a roadside stand. You can begin with the intention of building this roadside stand. It is to get some extra money. You can talk about the attitude of the city people. You can discuss the dreams of the farmers. You can also bring into light the politicians and businessmen, the greedy good doers, beneficent beasts of prey. So all these put together will give you an essay in the most simplest way. So coming to question number 2, comment on the symbolic significance of the roadside stand. It stands as a symbol of the village life. So what is a symbol first? A symbol is actually a different kind of representation, a more intense way of representation. So this roadside stand is actually a symbol of the village life. And through this roadside stand, we are getting a complete description of the life of the villages. We understand the simple life that these people are leading, past and present, how the farmers are not happy now, how they cannot sleep at night now, and how the poet is actually contrasting rural life and city life. So, all these are put together in the context of this roadside stand, which stands as a symbolic significance when talking about village life and the life of farmers. So, with this, we come to the end of the session. So, thank you everyone for your patient listening. Now, if you have any doubts, any clarifications, or if you need any more or further explanations, please do not hesitate to connect with me. So, here is my email ID. So, once again, thank you for your patient listening. Thank you all.